In a quiet rural town far from Seoul, our female lead, Yoriam, enjoys a cozy, peaceful life. Right now, she's sound asleep, completely relaxed, until her grandmother suddenly calls out her name, Yoriam. Startled, she wakes up as her grandma questions why she's been lying in bed all day and asks if she's feeling unwell. Yoriam quickly reassures her that she's fine. In fact, she says she's feeling more energetic just from eating grandma's home-cooked meals and getting lots of rest. Even so, her grandmother remains concerned. She says Yoriam's constant lying down reminds her of their dog's mother before she passed away last year. But Yoriam laughs it off and insists it's nothing like that. She explains that, up until recently, her life has been anything but restful. After failing her exams, she spent a whole year shut away in a tiny student room, and every single day back then felt like torture. But now, being in the countryside, her skin is glowing again and her cheeks are full. Life finally feels good. Despite Yoriam's reassurances, her grandma still insists she go outside for a walk. To make sure she does, she sends her on an errand to deliver a basket of corn to Old Man Kong. After giving her the address, Grandma waves her off, and Yoriam sets out, even though she finds it hard to believe the neighborhood is really called Below Village. When she arrives, the house looks unusually quiet, almost like no one's home. But as she walks around to the back, she spots someone standing there. Just as she opens her mouth to speak to the young man, her eyes widen in shock. He's openly pleasuring himself, completely unaware of her presence. She's frozen in disbelief. To her, what she sees is animalistic, wild, and she's never seen anything that large before. She's deeply disturbed that he's doing something so private out in the open, where anyone could see. In her head, she calls him a weirdo. But then it hits her, if she keeps standing there watching, she might look just as strange. So, she quickly decides to leave. Just as she turns to go, a corncob slips from her basket and hits the ground with a soft thud. The noise catches his attention. When he's finally done, he turns around, and there she is, sitting on the ground, clearly shaken. She stammers, begging him not to come any closer. And right then, a memory flashes in her mind, something her grandma told her when she first arrived in the village. There are no young people around here. He keeps staring at her in complete silence while she sits frozen on the ground, trembling. His sharp, unblinking gaze feels almost animalistic, like a beast sizing up its prey. The longer he stays silent, the more terrified she becomes, wondering if she's about to be eaten alive. But just then, the tense moment is broken by the voice of an old man calling out, "Tane, are you home?" It's Mr. Kong. He looks in their direction and spots Yoriam. "Who's this?" he asks, curious. In a shaky voice, she stammers out a question, asking if he's Tane's grandfather, and quickly explains that she was only there to run an errand for her grandma. Without waiting for a response, she bolts out of the house, sprinting back home, gasping for air and yelling for her grandmother. Her grandma, who's busy in the kitchen, casually reminds Yoriam that she isn't deaf, then asks why she's running around like she's being chased by death itself. Still panting, Yoriam clings to her and blurts out that she saw a young man at Grandpa Kang's house. To that, Grandma calmly confirms it. Yes, there is a young man there. His name is Tane, and he's Mr. Kang's grandson. Later that day, during dinner, Yoriam grows even more curious and starts asking questions about him. Her grandma, ever graceful and relaxed, responds between bites. She explains that since there are barely any young people in the village, Tane doesn't have any friends. Later that night, Yoriam lies in bed, restless and wide awake. Her mind keeps drifting back to Tane, and no matter how hard she tries, sleep just won't come. By morning, she hasn't slept a wink, and now she's struggling to stay awake in the middle of her chores. Her grandma catches her off guard and asks what she's doing. Yoriam, startled, quickly says she's looking at the peppers. Then, out of nowhere, she tells her grandma that she's going for a walk to Below Village. Her grandma looks at her, clearly surprised, and asks why she wants to go there of all places. Yoriam casually replies that she just wants some fresh air. When she arrives and can't find Tane anywhere, she heads to Mr. Kang's house to ask. The old man tells her Tane might be out picking apples and points her in the right direction. She waits a while, watching the quiet orchard, but there's still no sign of him. Just as she's about to give up, she suddenly feels a shadow fall over her. She turns, and there he is. Tane, silently standing there, eyes fixed on her. Flustered, Yoriam immediately starts explaining. She says she came to apologize for what happened the day before. But to her shock, he doesn't say a word. He just picks up his bag and walks off. Determined, she follows him, calling out and trying to get his attention, but he completely ignores her. Frustrated, she gives up and plops down on a nearby spot, deciding to wait and see how long he plans to keep this up. That's when something unexpected happens. He suddenly removes his gloves, like he's done working, and before she can process what's happening, he begins taking off his clothes, right there. It turns out he just wants to wash up, but out in the open. Yoriam stares in disbelief. Doesn't he feel even a little embarrassed? She wonders to herself, unable to look away. Her mind starts wandering, and before she knows it, she's fantasizing about his body. Caught up in the moment, she even moves closer and reaches out to touch him. But he quickly brushes her hand away and reaches for his towel, making it painfully clear that he's not interested. Whatever she's feeling alone. Still, just before walking away, he silently drops an apple into her hand without a single word. Then he leaves. From that day on, going for walks started to feel natural. She found herself quietly tagging along as Tane transported apples from place to place. And once the day's work ended, he'd peel apples for her to eat, and somehow, they always tasted sweeter when he did. The way he peeled them so precisely, with such care, fascinated her. Unlike most men, he wasn't rough or careless. Even with his large, calloused hands, he cut with such finesse and attention to detail that it sparked a new kind of curiosity in her. Curious and unable to resist, she reaches out and touches his hand. The moment her fingers brush against his skin, he flinches slightly and looks away. "Are you all right?" she asks, trying to keep her tone casual, though she's secretly wondering, is he actually shy? Wanting to see that reaction again, she gently traces the thick veins running across the back of his hand with her fingertips. But this time, he stays still, not reacting the way he did before, and it's no fun if he doesn't flinch. So, she ups the game. Teasingly, she pulls his arm closer until it rests against her thigh. That does the trick. He stiffens, reacting instantly. The way he responds sends a small thrill through her, making her want to push his buttons even more. But just as she's about to go further, he stops her. Without saying a word, he pulls his hand away, firm and abrupt. Surprised, she quickly apologizes, asking if she took the joke too far. Still, he doesn't speak. He just sits there, looking like he's silently battling with something. And then she sees it, clear as day. He's trying to hide an erection caused by her touch. Suddenly, rain starts pouring down heavily, trapping her in the middle of this strange, tense moment. If it weren't for the downpour, she might have bolted out of there already, but now, she has no choice but to stay put. What unsettles her more, though, is Tane's silence. He hasn't said a single word through it all, and she can't even see his face clearly. What is he thinking? She wonders, growing more frustrated by the second. Then, out of nowhere, she asks, "Have you ever kissed someone before?" The question catches him off guard, and he looks at her, surprised. But before he can answer, she follows up with another, bolder one. "Do you want to try it with me?" Not waiting for a reply, she leans in and kisses him. In the middle of the kiss, he suddenly pulls back and stares at her, his gaze deep and oddly intimate, like he's seeing her for the first time. And from that moment, things begin to escalate. The air between them thickens, and even Tane seems to question where she gets the nerve. Just as things begin to get intimate between them, Grandpa Kang's voice suddenly echoes through the compound, snapping them out of the moment. He proudly shows off the fish he caught from the river, cheerfully announcing that he's craving a spicy fish stew tonight. Spotting Yoriam, he invites her to join them for dinner. She greets him politely, but inside, her heart is racing. She can't shake the feeling that something serious almost happened. The next day, Yoriam lies beside her sleeping dog, lost in thought. She keeps replaying everything in her mind, beating herself up over that deep kiss, especially because it happened out in the open. She cringes at the idea of Grandpa Kong walking in on them and imagines the horrified look he would have had. Frustrated, she scolds herself, wondering if she's under some kind of strange spell. She even considers avoiding walks entirely from now on. Just then, her grandma appears and asks, half-jokingly, if she's trying to meet her creator for the billionth time. In her hand is the umbrella Grandpa Kong lent Yoriam during yesterday's rain. She instructs her to return it. As Yoriam heads toward his house, her steps slow with nerves. The thought of seeing Tane again after everything makes her stomach turn. Can I even look him in the eyes? She wonders, praying she won't embarrass herself again. Suddenly, she shifts the blame onto him in her mind. It's his fault anyway, for being so ridiculously good-looking. Still, she makes a firm decision, just return the umbrella, avoid him completely, and move on. After all, he's just some countryside guy, how hard can it be to ignore him? Or so she thinks. When Yoriam arrives at the Kong compound, she knocks on the door and quickly greets who she assumes is Grandpa Kong. But her face freezes in horror when the door opens to reveal Tane, staring at her with that same unreadable expression. She forces a smile, maybe a little too wide, and tries to play it cool as she hands him the umbrella. But before she can turn and make her escape, he suddenly steps forward and kisses her. Caught completely off guard, she stands still for a few seconds before snapping back to her senses and pushing him away. "What is your problem?" she blurts, visibly flustered. He apologizes right away, which only confuses her more. Why does he always act like this? She wonders. But then, in that same breath, he begins to explain himself, clearing the tension that lingers in the air. Yoriam, still shy and self-conscious, nervously glances around and whispers, "What if someone sees us? We're outside, in broad daylight." But Tane doesn't waste a second. Without a word, he grabs her hand and pulls her inside his house. Once indoors, she takes a quick look around, pleasantly surprised by how neat and well-arranged the space is. "Your room is really clean," she says, trying to fill the silence. But he's not interested in small talk. Before she can take another step, he pins her gently to the wall, his gaze locked on hers as things turn heated again. And from that day on, the boy who once seemed clueless about everything transforms completely, becoming a beast every time he lays eyes on her. "What are you doing?" Yoriam yells as her back hits a tree. Tane just grins, teasing her to calm down, reminding her that it's only the two of them out here in the wide, empty field. Before she can respond, he catches her in a warm, breathtaking kiss that nearly knocks the strength out of her legs. When the kiss ends, he playfully teases her fiery reactions. Her face flushes a deep red, not just from embarrassment, but from silent frustration. When did he get so experienced? She fumes. The clumsy awkwardness of their first kiss is long gone now, and soon, things grow more heated between them again. The next morning, sunlight pours gently over the countryside, and we find Yoriam sulking as she speaks to Tane in a quiet corner. She grumbles that she only came to pick up the corn basket they used the other day. "Grandma sent me to fetch it," she says stiffly, secretly praying he won't pull anything wild today. But without warning, Tane throws her over his shoulder, and that's the end of that conversation. Hours later, Yoriam stands frozen with wide eyes when she spots Tane approaching her house, with her dog clenched tightly in her arms, practically being squeezed in the name of affection. She stares in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" she asks sharply. "I came to hang out," he replies, calm as ever. Too good to be true, she thinks, immediately accusing him of only coming over to get intimate again. Flustered, she warns him not to even think of anything funny. Her grandma is home and hears everything loud and clear. Just then, her grandma calls out to him warmly. But Tane has already swept Yoriam off her feet, literally, declaring that he's taking her out. Hearing this, Grandma's expression shifts in shock. "Who said you could just take her?" she demands. But after a moment of protest, she sighs and gives in, figuring maybe some fresh air will do her homebody granddaughter some good. "Put me down, you beast." Yoriam screams, squirming in Tane's grip as he effortlessly carries her off. She demands to know where he's taking her, but he doesn't say a word. Minutes later, the scene shifts to a beautiful, sunlit stream where the water sparkles under the light. Now settled on a flat rock, Yoriam holds a fishing rod, visibly unsure of herself. She complains about her weak grip, and Tane, ever the quiet instructor, tells her to cast the line farther into the water. Even as she tries, she keeps fretting that the fish just aren't biting. While pretending to focus on fishing, she secretly keeps a close eye on Tane, reminding herself not to let her guard down, because knowing him, he might still have some tricks up his sleeve. Just as she's lost in thought, a sudden pull on the line snaps her back into focus. The rod jerks in her hands, and with a loud gasp, she reels in the fish like a warrior in battle. She holds it up proudly like a hard-won trophy. "Look at this," she beams, still shocked that she managed to catch anything. Tane smirks, clearly proud of himself for teaching her, while she goes on about the spicy fish stew her grandma's definitely going to make with it. Then he goes silent. Curious, she turns to him, wondering what's up. That's when he flashes a rare, toothy smile, and somehow, it makes her heart swell. She's never seen him smile like that before. What started out awkward and clumsy quickly begins to feel natural. By the end of the day, both their families gather for a hearty fish meal, chatting, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. Yoriam is overjoyed. Not only is she getting to know Tane better, but for the first time, it feels like they're part of something warm and whole. As the afternoon sky fades into soft evening clouds, Grandpa Kong suddenly raises his voice, telling everyone to hold on tight, because he's got muscular plans in motion. Meanwhile, Yoriam settles into a cozy spot nearby, feeling relaxed as she watches the peaceful scene unfold. Curious, she glances over at Tane and asks, "What are you doing?" "Peeling an apple," he replies calmly, fully focused on the task. At that moment, her mind drifts to all the times he's peeled apples just like this, for her. She remembers every one of them clearly. With a warm smile, she whispers a quiet thank you, sincerely grateful for the small, tender moments they've shared. She's especially happy seeing how much he's changed. These days, he smiles more, he's less stiff, and that awkward shyness he used to carry around seems to have melted away. It makes her heart swell with joy. But just as everything feels right, we're hit with an unexpected truth. Yoriam's time in the village is coming to an end. Her return home is just around the corner, and Tane still has no idea. The next morning, Yoriam stands silently, eyes fixed on her already packed bags. It feels unreal. Summer break just started, yet she's already counting down the last few days before heading back to Seoul. "Time really flies," she mutters, a small, smug smile tugging at her lips. Determined to make the most of it, she calls out to her grandma, wondering if she's awake yet, completely unaware of her surroundings. Still half distracted, she asks for something sweet to munch on. A hand reaches out with a perfectly peeled apple, and she takes it without thinking, biting into it hungrily. But something about the texture makes her pause. "Where did you even pick this from?" she mumbles, mid-chew. "I picked it from my yard," says a deep, familiar voice. Her eyes shoot wide open. "Tane." She whirls around, stunned. "When did you even come into the house?" "Right after I woke up," he replies flatly. Still in disbelief, she narrows her eyes. "Why are you even here so early?" "I'm always early," he says without missing a beat. Grinding her teeth, she repeats her question, this time with a bit more edge. "No, seriously, why are you at my house this early?" He inches closer to her, close enough that she can feel the tension buzzing in the air. "Am I not allowed to visit anymore?" he asks, his voice low, unreadable. Her eyes widen again. He's been acting weird. Lately, he's been coming over more than usual, always showing up at her grandma's house, helping around and popping up everywhere. It's not a bad thing, exactly, but she can't shake the feeling that something's shifting. Back in the moment, they stare at each other in silence, but inside, Yoriam's instincts are screaming, "You need to tell him he's been coming around way too much." Jolting upright, Yoriam shoves him away with a glare. "You're so annoying, first thing in the morning, seriously," she snaps. Is this your house? Trying to calm her down, Tane casually reaches for her hand and interlocks their fingers. All right, he says with a small smile, I'll start coming after lunch then. But Yoriam only grows more irritated. That's not the point, she argues, her voice rising. What started as a minor complaint quickly turns into a petty back and forth, both refusing to back down. Completely fed up, Yoriam storms out the door, not even sure where she's headed. Tane calls out, asking where she's going, but she ignores him completely. Minutes later, we find her sitting in the toilet, sulking and smacking her forehead in frustration. Why did I just run off like that? She scolds herself. She thinks back to how she froze when he locked their fingers, how easily he throws her off balance. It only makes her feel worse. A rush of memories floods in, the time they've spent together, the little moments they've shared. And yet, she still can't understand why he always shows up like he owns the place. It's like he thinks this is his grandma's house too or something. Sighing heavily, she finally lets herself cool down, even comparing him, ridiculously, to a lost little chick looking for his mom. Still grumbling, she reaches for the tissue and realizes it's all gone. Her shriek could probably knock down the toilet walls. Where's the tissue? A hand calmly slides a roll under the door. It's him. Absolutely livid now, she snatches it and shouts, "Why are you following me everywhere?" Voice trembling and nearly on the verge of tears, she yells, "Why won't you just stop this nasty habit? Just leave me alone already." In the next scene, a stone suddenly flies out of nowhere and hits Tane on the head, making him flinch in pain. Out of the blue, his summer fling storms up to him, full of rage, yelling at him for following her to the bathroom and accusing him of having no sense of boundaries. Then, a thought strikes her, sending a chill down her spine. She begins to wonder aloud if he's acting this way because of what she said earlier, or if he's just been hanging around, waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, Tane gets flustered and blurts out how he's been waiting for her to come by his neighborhood. Since she hasn't shown up, he came looking for her instead. Still upset, she says he's making her feel uncomfortable, prompting him to quickly apologize. She waves it off like it's not a big deal and playfully suggests he help her with her laundry instead. Later that evening, Tane takes a nap, worn out from the day's stress. While he sleeps, Yoriam gently covers him with a sheet, quietly thankful for everything he's done. Her thoughts drift back to their earlier conversation about going to Seoul. She can't forget how indifferent he seemed about it, even after she pointed out that he's lived in the countryside his whole life and might need a change. Casually, she also brings up the idea of him going to college, just like everyone else his age. Subsequently, Tane admits that he's interested, and when she digs deeper out of excitement, she's met with a firm no. Stunned, she reminds him of what he just said. That's when Tane finally opens up. He's afraid to leave his grandfather alone since he's the only family he has. He goes on to say that, yes, he's curious about college and life beyond the countryside, but right now, his grandfather comes first. With a shy smile, she starts listing all the great things Seoul has to offer. He agrees with her but gently adds that he really enjoys spending time with her and the grandparents. Her eyes shoot open in surprise at his words. Suddenly thrown off balance, she quietly wonders if he even knows she's going back to Seoul. A pang of guilt creeps in. Why hadn't she told him earlier? Why did she keep quiet all this time? Her phone buzzes, pulling her back to reality. She picks up and casually tells the caller she's fine, then walks out of the room while talking. At that very moment, Tane stirs from his nap, stretching with a big yawn. Their earlier conversation still lingers in the air, and he catches a bit of it as he fully wakes up. He hears her voice clearly now, and what she says sends a chill down his spine. "I'm planning to return to Seoul next week," she says, just as she wraps up her call with her mother. His eyes widen in shock. Moments later, she glances back into the room and calls out his name, as if sensing something just happened. She looks around, confused, and wonders aloud where he went. Fast forward a few days, the rain pours down heavily, but that doesn't stop her. She's determined to figure out what's going on with Tane and why he's been acting so distant lately. When she finally sees him, he says nothing, but she doesn't give up. She asks if he's just been busy and tells him she came all the way through the storm just to check on him. Her mind suddenly drifts back to the day they shared their first kiss, the memory vivid in her heart. Still trying to lighten the mood, she beams as she tells him about the cheap fish she picked up for him at the market while out with her grandma. But Tane doesn't respond, his cold silence continues. Frustrated, she playfully whines, clinging to him like a child, promising to cook him lunch just to see him smile. Yet, nothing works. Then, out of nowhere, he pulls her into a hug. She freezes, completely stunned. Bewildered, she asks him why he's doing this and tells him to let go, but instead, he holds her even tighter. "I can't breathe," she gasps, pushing him off with force and falling back onto the bed. Still catching her breath, she stares at him and demands to know what's wrong, why he hugged her so suddenly and so tightly. But Tane doesn't answer. He simply reaches out to her again. Something's wrong. She can feel it deep in her bones. A chill creeps through her body as she tries again to ask what's going on. Meanwhile, Tane can't get a single word out. His eyes are full of emotions he can't express, and she quietly wonders why he's looking at her like that. Outside, the rain grows heavier, pounding against the walls. Then, without warning, he leans in and kisses her. Shocked, she pulls away, yelling at him to stop. But her words don't seem to reach him. He presses her against the wall and kisses her again, and this time, it doesn't stop there. Soon, they become intimate. Afterward, as she lies beside him, she pleads with him to let her go. But he shakes his head, insisting that if he does, she'll run straight back to Seoul. Confused, she asks why he would think that. Then it hits her, he must have overheard her call with her mother. Her heart sinks. Tane clings to her, begging her not to leave. He talks about how peaceful life is here in the countryside, how simple and happy things have been since summer break started. He tries to convince her to let go of everything in the city, her plans, her future, her responsibilities. But by now, she's crying too. She can't hold it in anymore. She tells him she has to go back. It's not an easy decision, she says, but her family will worry if she doesn't return. As those words leave her lips, Tane turns red, his face streaked with tears. Then he whispers through the sobs, "Please stay, Yoriam." The next day, Yoriam is packed and ready to leave. Her grandma sends regards to Yoriam's mum and reminds her not to forget putting the side dishes in the fridge. Meanwhile, Grandpa Kong walks up to the house with Tane by his side and a bag of items for Yoriam in his other hand. He gives her the bag and says he thought she'd stay until the end of the month. Yoriam quickly apologizes for leaving so suddenly and grabs her suitcase, prepared to head out. Even then, Tane stays quiet, and his grandpa nudges him, telling him to at least say goodbye, thinking he's just too shy to speak. 2 months pass, and Yoriam still finds it hard to believe she left the countryside. Turns out, she got more attached than she thought, and she didn't expect leaving so suddenly would feel this difficult. A year later, Yoriam sits quietly in class when her friend walks in and greets her. While chatting, her friend notices Yoriam's hair and compliments how long it's gotten. Yoriam smiles and says they're just extensions. Her friend grins and says she seems completely different from how she was in freshman year. She jokingly asks if there's a guy at school Yoriam's trying to impress, but Yoriam quickly says no. Still curious, her friend asks if it's someone outside school, and Yoriam's mind instantly drifts to Tane. Her voice trembles as she tries to reply, but her friend picks up on the mood shift and seriously asks what happened between them, and how far things went. Overwhelmed, Yoriam grabs her jacket and rushes out. On her way home, her friend's words keep playing in her head. Out of nowhere, it starts to rain. She looks around and thinks about running into a convenience store for cover. Just as she's about to make a move, someone drapes a jacket over her. Startled, she turns and sees a guy holding the umbrella. He has her school's student ID around his neck. That's probably why he looks so familiar. Before she can react, he gently pulls her closer and tells her to stay near if she doesn't want to get soaked. Eyes wide, she looks up and asks, "Do we know each other?" "Yeah," he says softly. With a steady gaze, he asks, "Don't you remember me?" In the next scene, they're at his place, drying off their soaked bodies with towels. He hands her some clothes to wear until the rain lets up. Earlier, they'd rushed to the convenience store when the downpour started, but all the umbrellas were already sold out. With no other option, they ended up at Tane's apartment. He offers to make her some coffee, and while he's busy, Yoriam can't stop thinking. She notices how much he's changed, the books written in English that look like college materials, and clothes that are actually suitable for someone their age. She remembers how he used to dress back in the village, and it hits her. There's no sign of that awkward country boy anymore. Now, he looks like someone who's lived in the city his whole life. Unable to hold it in, she finally asks, "What happened?" He turns to her, confused. "What do you mean?" She reminds him how he once said he'd never move to Seoul. But clearly, he's living here now, and alone, all for school. It catches her off guard, especially since he never had plans to attend college. But Tane explains that his grandfather kicked him out and made him go, even setting him up with the apartment. But Yoriam never imagined they'd reunite like this. As they talk, he brings over a plate of apples, telling her his grandfather sent them. Knowing how much she's always loved apples from their orchard, she eagerly digs in to satisfy her cravings. All the while, Tane just sits nearby, quietly watching her eat. As she eats, he brings up old memories, how they used to eat apples together and how good those times were. After that, he gets up to fetch the laundry for her. Meanwhile, maybe it's the talk about the past, but Yoriam starts to feel restless. What really gets to her isn't the guilt of how coldly she left him back then, it's the fact that Tane hasn't mentioned it at all. Not even once. Later, as she gets ready to leave, Tane points out that it's still cloudy outside, but she insists on going. He gently grabs her hand and asks if he can walk her home. "It's been so long. Can't we catch up while we walk?" he says, wearing a sad expression. But she stays firm, saying she already has plans. She pulls her hand away and repeats that she's leaving. Then suddenly, he wraps his arms around her from behind and says she's not going anywhere. Shocked, she turns and asks why. His reply is simple, "Because I'm not letting you go." She keeps shouting that she has somewhere to be, but before she can finish, he lifts her off the ground and tells her to cancel her plans. In the middle of their argument, Tane slips, and they both fall to the ground. Still lying there, he looks at her and says she's been avoiding his eyes, that she's running away again. He asks if being around him now makes her uncomfortable. She quickly shakes her head. "It's not that," she says. "It's just that when I'm with you, all I can think about is how good things used to be. And then, I feel guilty." Hearing that, Tane quietly replies that after she left, he spent days going over everything, trying to understand, trying to accept it. Eventually, he convinced himself that maybe they were just from two different worlds. But now, he admits he's realized something. There's no such thing as belonging to different places. You stay where you want to be, with the person you want to be with. Pulling her into his arms, he gently asks if she's going to run away again. Then, he confesses he lied earlier. Tears stream down both their faces as he continues. He didn't move to Seoul because his grandfather forced him. The truth is, he used studying as an excuse to come here. But deep down, he came hoping he might see her again. And finally, he tells her that he likes her. That he's always liked her, from back then until now. Yoriam looks at him, teary-eyed, and softly tells him she feels the same way too. And with that, this beautiful love story comes to an end. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories.